On the 5th of November, 2022, I could have never prepared myself for the conversation I was about to have. I had arrived at the bar around 10:30. After a long day of helping my girlfriend move into her new apartment, I was meeting up with a group of friends to hang out and catch up. I parked right behind my girlfriend's car on the street outside the venue, hopped out, and prepared to make my way to the entrance. Right when we got into the venue, I saw my friends seated outside on a long bench that could fit about 10 people on either side. It was dark and chilly, but the lights strung up on the trees that surrounded us provided us with enough visibility to see each other's faces. I said hello to everyone and I introduced my girlfriend and her friend to everyone that hadn't met them yet. But we ended up sitting across from each other and got lost in our own conversations. After some small talk about the bar we were in and what we had been up to recently, I ended up going into a bit of a trance. I unintentionally broadened my field of view, and as a result, I could hear every conversation that was going on in this long, crowded bench at once. But one voice in particular stood out to me. I couldn't tell if she was Swedish, German, or some other foreign identity that I couldn't pinpoint due to me being so uncultured, but one thing was for sure, she was not from America. As I narrowed my focus, I overheard her talking about something related to politics. Now, usually I would try to avoid any conversation even remotely related to politics because I really don't like engaging in political discourse, but I was curious to see what a non-American had to say. She was in the middle of explaining how America had influenced the trading between other countries and made it more competitive. And it ended up sparking this whole debate around capitalism, America, and how polarizing everything is here. It's exhausting, she said. It seems like everything here is either all or nothing, amazing or terrible, and it's all about competing. I asked her where she was from, and she revealed that she was visiting from Germany. Seeing as I love to talk about how polarizing everything is in America as well, I asked her, well, what is it like in Germany? What would be the equivalent of the words we use here for love and hate? She went on to explain that Germans don't really give or receive compliments the same way that Americans do. They are much more blunt, and the highest praise that they will usually give something or someone is the English equivalent to "it's not bad." Think about that for a second. They don't really say they love or hate something, and something very rarely, if ever, is the best or the worst. It's usually just okay. And this is where it started to get interesting. We went back and forth talking about this insatiable desire to overtake everything and everyone that is much more evident in America than almost anywhere else. Having a capitalist structure certainly plays a huge role into why we are so competitive, but after that conversation, I started to think that there might be a deeper, more hidden reason. And that reason was the structure of the English language itself. To test that theory, when I got home that night, I started contemplating many of my assumptions and inclinations that I use on a daily basis through the words in which I speak. I rarely, if ever, have an okay day. It's either a shitty day or a great day. But what even constitutes a great day? What are the parameters that I have to meet in order for a day to be considered great versus not great? And why is there usually no in between? So I started to try to answer these questions. The way I define a great day is usually based on feeling really good, getting at least one piece of work done, and hanging with people I like. But it could take on many different forms than that. Now, what if I don't hit one of those parameters? Is it simply just a good day, or is it something worse? And those confusing questions led me down an even larger trail of thoughts. Before I even knew what language was, what did my thoughts look like? Were they merely just visualizations of things I had already seen in reality, or maybe an overly glorified version of them? Like, what does a baby who has no concept of language dream of? Or dogs, what do they dream of? These thought experiments led me down a rabbit hole of linguistic theories until I eventually got to what I was looking for: linguistic relativity. And this is the hidden force that could be contributing to you feeling miserable. To understand linguistic relativity, allow me to provide you with an example. When looking at an object hung up on a wall, what would be the first sentence that comes to mind to describe it? Well, if you're like me and English is your primary language, then you would say something like, "the object is on the wall." But what if you were from Germany, like the woman in the story? Well, you'd probably say something along the lines of, "Das Objekt ist an der Wand." I'm sorry for my absolutely horrible pronunciation, I don't know how to speak German at all. But the structure of that sentence, it sounds pretty similar to English, right? But what if the object was instead on something like a table? Well, then in German, you'd say, "Das Objekt liegt auf dem Tisch." Now, if you look closely, you'll see the word for on changed in German, but not in English. This is because the German language actually has two different words for on, depending on whether something is on a horizontal or vertical surface. They use on for a vertical surface and auf for a horizontal surface. This means that if you speak German, then these are aspects of your reality that you have to pay more attention to than your native English speaker. This is linguistic relativity applied in a real-world example. The idea behind linguistic relativity is that the structure of the languages you speak influences your cognitive aspects of reality. You see, much of why we choose to focus on what we focus on or feel what we feel from words has to do with what those words represent to us. Because after all, words are just a way of describing and explaining reality and aren't reality itself. Regardless of the fact that words are merely a placeholder for reality, they still have a tremendous impact on how we feel and our outlook on life. So how does this relate to you feeling miserable? Well, most people rarely, if ever, take the time to analyze why they use the words they do to describe something and how that word impacts their current mental and physical state. Let's take, for instance, an example of someone getting dumped. They're sitting on a couch next to their partner, and their partner says the words, "I just don't love you like I used to." This would shake almost anyone to their core. It elicits a massive response in the body, and you can quite literally feel your heart breaking, your hands and other limbs trembling, and a shockwave of pain pulse through your body. They did not physically do anything to you, but they used you and your partner's shared interpretation of all the late evenings spent talking together, the date nights, looking at each other while laying down in bed, and sharing your most vulnerable sides in the word form of all of that, which is love, to cause extreme physical discomfort. In other words, they use the word representation of everything I just described to express to you that they no longer love you. And those few words caused a feedback loop of memories, and all those memories that you will no longer be able to experience with your now ex-partner. So your conception of love, based on the words you speak, is what caused the physical distress. Of course, getting dumped is an extremely painful thing, and the emotions that are attached to somebody that you love are very real, but part of that distress did come from the conception and the beliefs and the stories you have behind what it means to love someone through words. And this whole concept of how your beliefs shaped by your past experiences and words affect your reality is something that I've actually read a bunch of times, but most recently in the book Happy, which I've been rereading in the summary version on the app Shortform. For those who aren't familiar with Shortform, it is a platform that is providing high quality guides to nonfiction books. Basically what they do is they take all of the most important key ideas from a book, condense it down into a summary format, and give you what you really need from self-help books, which usually contain a lot of fluff. Think of it as like your smartest friend explaining a book to you. But not only do they have that, the reason I really love Shortform is because you can directly apply what you've learned as you are learning it, because each book has exercises that you can do within the app so you can, like I said, apply what you are learning. And that is how you actually remember things from the books you're reading and get results from it. So like I said, I like to reread books or summaries of books that I've already read, and one of those books is Happy by Darren Brown. And in that, he suggests that happiness can be found by living a life in which our desires are balanced with the realities we live in. In other words, we have the power to shift our desires and our beliefs that have been created in the past to more closely get us to happiness. 3 genres on there that I think you guys would really like are philosophy, psychology, and self-improvement. So if you're interested in joining my favorite book summary platform, hands down, then you can get 5 days of unlimited access plus an additional 20% off their yearly subscription by using my special link, which is shortform.com/Cole, which is linked in the description below. And that'll give you access to thousands of book guides for the price of just 1 book a month. Take advantage of this offer, and thank you to Shortform for sponsoring this video. So here's what I want you to do. The next time you're feeling depressed or miserable about something, I want you to examine and analyze exactly what is going on. Now that you have this concept of linguistic relativity fresh in your mind, and you understand how much the structure of words and the concepts behind them affect how you feel, start to analyze the words that come up during similar times of distress. And I suggest that you write them down when they come up. You'll likely find yourself using words like annoyed, angry, sad, heartbroken, lonely, or something of the like. Then explain why you feel like you are that particular word right now. Now, as if you are a linguist, I want you to deconstruct the sentences that you are using, how they contribute to how you feel, and what they mean in relation to the culture you find yourself in. I'll give you a really concrete example so you can understand this. Let's say you come home from school and feel super tired and you realize you have a ton of homework you have to do that you don't want to do. It then dawns on you that your life is just a series of the same boring day over and over with small glimpses of actually fun stuff every once in a while. You'd probably write something like, "Today was as horrible as the last. Every day feels like the same monotonous tasks of school, eat, work, repeat. Life feels like it has no meaning. I'm too afraid to talk to people because they might judge me for messing up when I speak, and just the thought of doing that makes me want to escape into my phone and scroll. I don't have enough energy to change anything else because I'm too exhausted after all my classes and studying. I wish I could finally escape this cycle." When you have something like this written down, I want you to closely look at the words you chose to use to describe how you feel and pick out the most descriptive words. In this example, it would be the words such as horrible, monotonous, meaning, afraid, judge, escape, and exhausted. Then quite literally give yourself a couple minutes just to look at these words. Stare them down and think of all the things in your reality that those words are meant to represent. For example, in terms of horrible, you might think of a very unpleasant odor or being in a room full of people who don't like you. You get the idea. And do this with every word. Now, once you've gotten a good idea of what each word represents to you, I want you to do this sort of mind-altering technique. Ask yourself, what feelings are usually associated with this word, and how does my culture exacerbate these feelings? In other words, why do I feel like this particular thing is horrible, monotonous, meaningless, etc.? If we continue on with the example of the word horrible, one could probably come to the conclusion that a big part of the reason their day felt horrible was because the US culture has taught them to associate the word horrible with a day that was not filled with a bunch of things they wanted to do, or that they didn't achieve anything remarkable. And that if they really examined their day, it was not horrible, but it was just not the best. You need to understand that you have the power to change the parameters of a certain word, aka what makes something be whatever word you're analyzing. And upon doing so, one might feel those visceral negative feelings starting to impact them less and less. What we're trying to do here is deconstruct and break down every single belief that leads the words to have such a tight grip over your mental and physical state, and eventually get you back to a more accurate point of just seeing reality for what it is, without the words you usually attach to it. It's not that you can look at something that is genuinely awful and say, nope, what that represents for me is the word great, not awful, but rather slightly shifting the definition of the word or using a different, more useful and less destructive word to describe the thing. And after you've completed all these steps, really just sit there and look at your day or whatever it is you're feeling. Take it in and accept it without attaching to the discourse going on in your head associated with that thing. If you're anything like me, this will cause a mind of realizations that mostly have to do with the fact that a lot of the time, you've been programmed to feel much worse than you should whenever you are faced with adversity, loss, sadness, or any other unwanted situation. And when you do this, it makes it much easier for you to pick yourself back up and move towards positive action. Because as much as I talk about all the ways in which you can reprogram your mind to view and be affected by things differently, if you don't also do the things that makes it easier for humans to experience joy, like eating well, going outside, and moving your body, then no matter how much mind-altering exercises you do, you still probably won't feel optimal. So the next time you feel something or someone making you feel miserable, ask yourself, what does being miserable even mean in the first place? Thank you to all the patrons on this channel on Patreon. If you don't know what this is, it's a platform separate from YouTube, and you can get exclusive content there, and you can talk to me one-on-one over the phone on there. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description. If you like this video, you probably like this video where I talk about how your insecurities are a lie, and I also go into how words impact you. In that video, it might provide a deeper, broader definition that will help you understand this concept more after you rewatch this video if you need to. And that is all. Yeah, I'm signing off. Peace.